Hundreds of thousands of Americans undergo sleep studies every year, and this year, I was one of them. As we've all established, my lungs try to kill me. So it was time for doctors to figure out maybe how to mitigate some of that. I have a rare genetic form of dwarfism called Conradi-Hunerman syndrome, and one of the main things my form of dwarfism affects is my spine. My spine has a mixture of kyphosis and scoliosis mixed together, but my main issue is kyphosis. Kyphosis is when your spine bends forward into a C shape, and because of this, my spine is kind of resting on my lungs, like quite a bit. Because of this, when I lay down flat, my lungs still do their job and my airway is open. However, because of gravity, my lungs are a little bit more compressed than they usually are, making it harder for me to take in a full breath. Also, on the medical side, we have found that I'm not taking in enough oxygen when I lay flat, and I'm not releasing enough CO2, which for me results in migraines and just overall drowsiness during the day. They recognized that this was going to be a problem for me very early on, and when I was about 3 or 4, they made me wear a BiPAP every night. So you might be familiar with a CPAP, which is primarily prescribed for people who have sleep apnea. Both treat breathing disorders by sending pressurized air through a mask to help keep airways open. But the difference is that CPAP provides a single constant air pressure, while BiPAP provides 2 alternating pressures, a higher one for inhaling and a lower one for exhaling. The way I usually describe BiPAP is that it's basically a ventilator without me being intubated. So it is quite literally forcing air into my lungs to remind them to do their job when I'm unconscious. I wore a BiPAP every night, or approximately every night, from the age of 3 or 4 to the age of like 13 or 14. That's a long time. But after my halo traction and my spinal fusion, which I had when I was 13 turning 14, once I got home and was healed enough from that, I decided I did not want to wear my BiPAP anymore because I didn't think it was cool and no one else had to do it, so why should I? That worked for me for about 10 years until about 1.5 or 2 years ago when I was waking up so exhausted. I would have a full night of sleep, 9, 10, 11 hours of sleep, and wake up feeling like I didn't sleep at all. I was constantly drowsy, falling asleep at work, which that's not good for anybody ever, but I'm also a small business owner, so I could get away with a little bit more because I'm my own boss, so I didn't have a physical boss like standing over me. I'm alone in my office, so I didn't have that embarrassment of falling asleep because nobody was here to watch me do it. I was groggy all the time. My body felt really heavy. It was amplifying my chronic pain, and I was just constantly exhausted. This made it hard to do simple activities like work out or go to events or do anything, really. Once it got to the point where I could no longer ignore it, I decided to get some help medically. So I contacted my pulmonologist, who has been seeing me my entire life at Seattle Children's Hospital, and I told him that I now live in Southern California, and if he knew of anybody that would be willing to see me. For me personally, I can't just walk into any clinic and ask to be seen or enroll as a patient because I have such a rare condition. I have so much hardware and my anatomy is so complex that most providers won't see me or won't really know what to do with me. So my pulmonologist back home in Seattle suggested that I go to the pulmonology department at Cedars-Sinai Medical Institute in Beverly Hills. That is a drive because we live in Orange County, but if it meant that I was gonna sleep better, I did not care. I had my first virtual meeting with my sleep specialist from Cedars-Sinai last year at some point, and once we ruled out all of the environmental factors and most everything we could, she ordered an ABG, which is an arterial blood gas test, as well as some PFTs, which are pulmonary function tests. I am no stranger to pulmonary function tests. I've had them done many times. Actually, before every single surgery I had, when I was having surgery every 6 months from the age of 1 to the age of 13, I would be required to get a pulmonary function test done because they needed to measure my lung capacity and see if it was plateauing, if it was growing, and kind of see where my breathing was at. If you want to know more about my condition or my lungs specifically, head on over to this video that explains everything about my medical journey and my dwarfism. For this next part, this is a trigger warning. If you do not like talking about blood or arteries, or if needles make you nervous, whatever, please skip to this point in the video. So basically, an arterial blood gas test is not like a normal blood test. They go through your artery instead of one of your veins like usual. So you have a bunch of different places on your body where your arteries live and where sometimes they will do ABGs. For me personally, they did mine in the crook of my elbow, where like my elbow bends right here. That's usually where they take them. I am a really hard stick, so I've been poked dozens of times to try and get a blood draw before. This is something that I've known about. My veins are smaller. Also, my skin condition called ichthyosis does not make anything easier when it comes to blood draws or IV placements. And I just know that my body does not like needles, so much so that my veins kind of run away anytime it is time for a blood draw. So I was not thrilled for this. And with ABGs, you can't just get them done at a regular lab because they go through an artery. So it's really easy for you to like bleed out. You have to get them done at a level 1 trauma center from my experience, and or just at a hospital where they are equipped to deal with something like that. I was terrified. They tried 2 or 3 times on my right arm to get my artery and it just was not working. So they moved to my left arm, where finally they were able to get my ABG done. So an arterial blood gas test measures how much oxygen and carbon dioxide your body is holding in your blood. So my sleep specialist's fear was that I was not exhaling enough carbon dioxide, and that was what was increasing my migraines and making them a lot worse. My ABG results came back pretty normal, except my levels of carbon dioxide were elevated. They weren't elevated enough for me to have to be admitted that day, but they weren't in the normal enough range either. So that signaled to my sleep specialist that I was indeed holding too much carbon dioxide inside my body and I needed to go back on a BiPAP. We knew a BiPAP was going to work for me, but insurance needs certain tests to be done in order to cover a machine like that. So I had to go through all the hoops to be able to get what I needed, which sucks, but if you're disabled, you just kind of learn to live with what you got to do sometimes. My pulmonary function tests came back great, by the way. I mean, not great for like a normal range, but great for what I've got going on. So I ended up getting my BiPAP. So a BiPAP has an inhale pressure, an exhale pressure, and a backup rate. A backup rate is how long the machine is going to go before it forces air into your lungs. So we tried my old settings from when I was really young, but they obviously didn't work for my adult body because I'm bigger, I weigh more, whatever the reason is, they just didn't work. So that meant I had to go back in to Cedars-Sinai for a sleep study. I hate sleep studies. I was very nervous. I tried to get an at-home sleep study, which some people are able to do. There are a ton of at-home sleep studies that take place every year, but I was unable to do one because my anatomy is too complex and they wouldn't be able to physically monitor me like minute by minute, second by second from me being at home. So I had to do it in lab. I was really anxious because I thought the setup was going to be like a hospital room. And after 43 surgeries, I do not do well in hospital room settings. I knew that if it looked like a hospital room, I wasn't sleeping, period. So we got there. I filled out a lot of paperwork. I met who I call my air butler, Brian. Brian was phenomenal. And he really was my air butler. His job during the middle of the night is to track my breathing and to adjust my BiPAP settings. If I need more pressure, less pressure, more air, if I need more air forced into my lungs, things like that. I think Brian's official title is a sleep tech, but I think air butler sounds cooler. After I filled out paperwork, I got ready for bed, just like normal, and then it was time for my spa treatment. I call it a spa treatment. It felt like anything but that. Basically, he had to stick all of these sensors on me, and these sensors tracked things like my heart rate, my eye movements, my chest and my stomach movements, my leg movements, if I moved at all throughout my sleep, how much oxygen I was getting, and also my brain waves. So he was able to see what type of sleep sleep I was in at any given moment. So he had to stick all these things on me. And in order to do that, he had to clean the area. So he took these Q-tips and was just scrubbing my head. He would have to like part my hair so that it was just my scalp. And then he would have to scrub this cleanser. I don't know if it was just alcohol. I have no idea what it was. But anyway, he rubbed that all over my head basically and then stuck all of these sensors on me with this goop that is horrible to get out in the morning. We'll get there. So after I looked like Medusa with how many wires were coming out of my head, it was time for me to slowly but surely make it to the bed. And it was only about 6 feet away, but with that many things attached to you, it took a second. I had wires, they weren't just on my head. I had them all over my body. So they were on my face and they were on my legs and my arms and everything because they have to track everything. So once I got into bed, he put the BiPAP mask on me and I used the mask that I brought from home. It's pink and I love it. We put that mask on, which again, not as easy as it usually is because there were so many things on me. Hey, I look insane. It's leaking air. It's okay, Brian, I got it. Brian is my air butler. He is my sleep technician. And because I've been on a BiPAP for so long, I know what it's supposed to feel like. He did like the little tests or whatever with me, and then he was like, okay, look up, look down, just to make sure like all the sensors were working. Can you move this part of your body, whatever? And then he was like, okay, just wave at the camera and tell me if you need anything. And I was like, Brian kind of feels like the game master in an escape room. And then I was like, what if I just start treating Brian and the camera like the office camera, where I'm just like, you know, that's how it's going. Brian's great. Look, I have like this black ponytail of things that are on me now. I have stuff on my legs. I have all this stuff on my head. I have stuff on my chest and on my stomach. Sorry, I probably should. Sorry, Brian. That's where we're at. Taz is over here. This bed is actually quite comfortable. It's going pretty well. I think that's the update. See you in the morning. I was terrified that things were going to fall off of me in the middle of the night because if they do, he has to come in and wake me up and put them back on me. I was so nervous that I was gonna like bump something when I was awake and it was going to come loose, and then when I was asleep, it was just gonna come off. It was a whole thing. So once I was hooked up to their machine, I immediately knew that my pressures needed to be turned up because I was getting not as much air as I needed. So I asked Brian, my air butler, to turn my pressures up, and he did, and then I asked him to turn them up again, and then he did, and then I said, oh, that's great, and then I passed out. I wish it was that easy. I actually didn't pass out. It took me about an hour to fall asleep, and then I passed out. I slept, I think, for like 7 hours, which was pretty good, and nothing came off. Thank God. And what do you know? The last time I told him to up my pressures was the last time he had to. It's almost like I know my body or something. It's crazy. He woke us up at about 6 a.m. That is when sleep studies are over. He had to take all of these sensors off of me, and he's also not allowed to tell you anything. So I tried to get as much out of him as possible about what my results were, what was happening to me in the middle of the night, why I wasn't getting sleep, but he could not tell me anything, and he was very good at that part of his job. Then we went to the bathroom, and he gave me like a towel. We just wet it with warm water and then scrub to try and get all the goop off of me, out of my hair, off of my face. It's like sticky, but also kind of like Vaseline at the same time. So it's sticky and greasy. It's the worst. No matter how much we scrubbed, it wouldn't come all the way off. So we just kind of had to do as much as we could, and then I had to get dressed and we went to breakfast and then we went home. And then I took a really hot shower and that got everything out. So what were the findings? I met with my sleep specialist about 2 weeks later, and she fixed my settings. So we went with the settings that worked for me in the sleep study. Those have worked wonders. Phenomenal. Then she said the thing that she thought was causing my sleep issues was restless leg syndrome in my sleep. So by changing the settings, it helped me exhale enough carbon dioxide when I'm sleeping. So we got that situation fixed. And then the next thing she discovered through the sleep study was that I was having restless leg syndrome in the middle of the night. This is not a common thing for me. I've never had restless leg syndrome, but apparently because I'm moving around so much in the middle of the night, it is preventing my body from going through its natural sleep stages. So we talked quite a bit about why the restless leg syndrome was coming up, and we discovered that it was the Lexapro that I was on for depression and anxiety. I started taking Lexapro probably about 3 years ago, right after I got out of college. I was going through a really bad depressive episode and just needed a little extra help. So my primary care at that point prescribed me Lexapro, and I did not go see a psychiatrist. That's red flag number 1. I was on the absolute lowest dose of Lexapro for years. Ever since I've been taking it, I've been on the exact same dose. I was on 5 milligrams, and originally they wanted me to try another 5 milligrams, so I would be at 10, but I tried it for a few days and then I was so exhausted. It made me so drowsy, I wasn't even able to function throughout the day. So I just stayed at 5 milligrams for 3 years. And turns out long-term effects from SSRIs like Lexapro include restless leg syndrome at night. So then I began weaning off of my Lexapro. And because my primary care prescribed it to me, I went and asked them how to wean off. And my doctor said to cut the 5 milligrams in half, take half of it for a week, and then just stop cold turkey. I know now that that is not what I should have done. After I experienced the worst withdrawal symptoms for like 3 weeks, maybe even a month, I was exhausted. I had mood swings that were just completely out of the blue and horrible. I wasn't eating, and I just felt just horrible about myself and life and all of the above. It was the worst month in a while. I posted some videos throughout that time about what I was experiencing, and my comments informed me that I should not have been weaned off that fast. So I do kind of blame my primary care for that. I'm also in the process of switching primary care providers because primary care that gave me that advice, that's not the first piece of bad advice that they've given me, and it's clear that they just don't know how to deal with medically complex patients. I am switching primary care providers, I promise, but I do blame them for not telling me about the withdrawal symptoms that I might face at all. They didn't say anything about that. They didn't provide the risks. They didn't tell me that I should go see a psychiatrist to talk about other options. They didn't even tell me that I should switch off Lexapro and start a new SSRI for my depression and anxiety. None of that conversation was had. It was literally a 10-minute video visit with my PCP where she said, yep, split it in half, take half of it for a week, and then stop taking it. And it was also on me because I didn't do any of the research that went into it because I trusted my doctor. But I will take responsibility that I should have definitely done some more research and come across those symptoms of withdrawal on my own. I also think that providers should be giving that information to patients and shouldn't just leave them kind of out in the cold. So after all of that, I have been off of Lexapro for about 2 or 3 months now, and I've been on my new BiPAP settings for about that long as well, and I feel 1,000 times better. I don't believe I'm having any more restless leg events in the middle of the night because I'm waking up after 8 hours of sleep refreshed. I feel alive. I don't feel hungover like I used to. I am able to survive an entire day without a nap. I'm not falling asleep at work anymore. I hope this video helped if you are going in for a sleep study soon. Have you ever had one? Let me know down below. Click over here if you want to learn more about my entire medical journey and my form of dwarfism. Make sure to hit that subscribe button because it really does help me out, and while you're at it, hit that bell so that you're notified every single week when I post and you don't miss a thing. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye!